All right, what's up, everybody? So we are here today with a violin player and teacher here in town, Erik Hassell. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, of course.
So I met you, I think, at Arbucci School.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were working with kids for all district orchestra auditions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot of those teachers, hire random people out there to come, coach up their kids
Yep.
for like quartet stuff,
Mhm.
sectionals, and then this one was for the All-State.
Mhm.
What do you think about a lot of kids doing doing All-State auditions? You probably did that when you were in school, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's part of the experience. Like I feel like if you take lessons, like that's something you should work toward. At least district orchestra, and then if you've done well in that audition, then go on to state. It's just part of the learning process and the
Right.
opportunities that you have.
Yeah.
Taking advantage of them.
Like getting into state's no joke.
Yeah, I was on the
Yeah.
Missouri side, and we had all
Right.
the St. Louis kids.
Yeah,
to
right.
compete, and most of the orchestra was St. Louis. So
Yeah, that's funny.
So yeah.
Yeah, so in Missouri, I mean, it was all St. Louis, right? And then like maybe 5 or something throughout the rest of the state.
Yeah. And then it kind of like Overland Park takes over all state on the Kansas side.
Right.
So,
There's quite a few kids from Wichita. They'll have, I'm sure.
and a few Lawrence kids.
Yeah, and maybe Emporia. I mean, there'll be, I'm sure, at least 10 or more. I would think at least 10 or 20 are not from Kansas City out of the 80 or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always found that tough with so you have these kids that are not they're let's just be honest. I mean, they're not being New York Phil. You know, I mean, they're not going to do it. I've been playing.
I've judged these auditions.
Sure,
before.
yeah. I mean, I played since I was 3. And there's no way I'm making even Kansas City Symphony. You know, I mean, those guys are really, really good. And then there's all these teachers that want them to, or kind of / you're gonna practice these kind of making them do the audition music. Like, what do you think about that? About kids who maybe don't really even want to audition for the district music and teachers who kind of make them do this audition. What do you think about that?
So I'm going to relate this to myself, of course. My thing is I try to make my students do it at least 1 year so that they get the experience, and then if they don't want to do it after that, I give them a choice. I'm like, if you don't want to do it, then don't do it, but I want you to experience it. And for some of the kids, it is kind of stressful. Maybe they aren't as talented, whatever the case, or they just don't have the self-esteem. But the teachers who force them to do it, like, I understand they want the student to learn and everything, but I feel like that just adds a negative aspect to the teaching, and the kids may not like that. They may I just feel like it'll bring down their spirits, kind of,
Yeah.
So then, like, I mean, I haven't experienced this personally because I don't force my kids to do things typically, but I feel like there might be that extra tension, like that student kind of has in the back of their head, they're thinking like, oh, this teacher's making me do this, I really don't want to do it, type thing. And so that's where, because for instance, this semester I actually had a student, he was a freshman, and he's been playing since he was like 4. I went to school with his sister, and he's just much younger than her, and he didn't want to do solo and ensemble. I was like, what? Like, to me, like, all you do is private lessons is like learn solos. It's like, what's the big deal? And I was like, how about this? Do it this year, and then I won't make you do it if you don't want to in the future. He's like, okay, cool. He ended up getting a 1 at state. Like, he could play.
Yeah.
And so it was, I don't know. But,
yeah, right.
But then now I'm just like, okay, now you've experienced it. Now I'm not going to make you do it. And he was like, okay, cool. Like, he was kind of, he was like, okay, it wasn't that bad, but I did it, and now I don't have to if I don't want to. So.
Yeah, because like, and so why, and so the next question is, why do you think the kids would view that as a negative? You said negative. Like,
well, the teacher's forcing them to do something that they don't want to, and they've clearly expressed that they don't.
Right.
And they're kids. So kids, if they have kind of a, they get kind of, not throw a fit, but kind of that thing where they're just like, he's a jerk because of that one thing.
Right. Well, the teacher forcing them is the one thing, but why do you think the kids don't want to do it?
I don't.
Like
it could
the,
be
like the excerpt stuff where
When I was in school, I wanted to do everything.
Yeah.
So personally, I don't. But I don't understand it. But things that I kind of have gotten out of students is they don't want to be competitive, or they don't want to compare themselves to others. So for instance, that would be the all district, all state thing.
Right.
So I have a student, and they do on the Missouri side of Kansas City, they do an all district orchestra for the middle schoolers. So 7th and 8th graders get to perform. I think in Kansas it's just a recommended by the teacher type thing. And I asked one of my students, I was like, hey, you're going into 8th grade, there's all district orchestra, would you be interested in doing that? He said no. And I was like, what? I was just really surprised because it was very sudden. He didn't even think about it. And I asked him, I was like, well, why is that? He's like, well, I don't want to be competitive with it. I was like, well, but can you be competitive with yourself? Like, can you have a personal goal with it rather than comparing yourself to the other kids?
Yeah.
And he didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Because that was my thing. I was like, oh, I want to do this. I wasn't like, oh, I want to beat my friend so-and-so.
Right.
It was me. I wanted to, oh, I got second violin this year. I want to try to be a first violin next year.
Right.
And then my senior year, I remember my goal was to get into the top 4 or 8.
Right.
They chair like the first few people
Sure.
of each stand. And it was just like I had goals like that. So this student hadn't thought of that. So I think the competitiveness can be a negative thing for some kids, or why they might not want to do it. And then solo and ensemble, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because me, it's just like I try to convince my students. I'm like, this is an opportunity for you to play for somebody else, and you can get feedback from them rather than just me who yells at you every week about the same things. And for me, it's also I get the reinforcement from another teacher.
Yes.
Like I was like, huh. Like I get that voice out. I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
They said this. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
And I kind of become
I've said that
smart aleck about it.
I've said that for the last 17 lessons to you.
Yeah.
Rhythm.
Yes.
Rhythm.
Or like something about the bow or their posture.
I wonder, and I agree with all of what you just said. I wonder the thing that was funny to me, and really what made me kind of start straying away from classical, is the actual layout of the actual excerpts. Is that there are these, I mean, auditioning for Wichita Symphony, I mean, we did this Shostakovich that was 2 lines, you know, I mean, and it's like, what is this? You know, I mean, it's obviously, we know it's a section of a symphony, yada, 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 but like the kids, like, you know, the excerpts are, they're lame, you know, I mean, they're not a song, right? And so that would be my argument of why this is so unprofessional. I gotta turn on this light. There we go. I would wonder why, if that's one of the reasons why the kids don't like to do the excerpts, is because it's not a song. You know, it's not a song. It's, you know,
I didn't even think of that.
I mean, like that's one of the reasons why I was kind of over after doing the Wichita State auditions. You know, I mean, Don Juan and Mozart something and Beethoven's Fifth and like, you know, and I have fun playing them because I understand what it is and stuff. But that, you know, so I wonder if that. So with that idea, I'm always curious how hard and what, like, the way the teacher comes at the student and kind of what kind of music they decide to give them, attitude-wise, how the teacher like comes at the student, how much technique do you give them, you know, like what, like, because I look at these excerpts kind of on the technique side, you know, of this, the purpose, to me, the purpose of doing the excerpts is to like play something that's ridiculously hard, you know, and what like for something like that of teaching, of giving them these excerpts, that even as a private teacher, like what is the purpose of giving them something like that?
I don't assign it myself.
Right.
So for instance, well, with the all district and all state stuff, I do talk about technique that might be involved, but I've never assigned an excerpt to a student without having an audition to follow it. Okay.
Right.
The way you were asking the question, I was wondering if you're saying if I gave an excerpt for a technique like that's out of context of an audition or something.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at in my head is like why a teacher would do that. Not you necessarily, but the only thing that I could come up with is that obviously there's this audition here, but after that, what's the point? You know, there is to me, because I was on this major trajectory, right? I mean, 3 years old, and I go through orchestra, and I'm like, okay, looking forward, now I've got college, I'm probably gonna go into this as a career. Like for me, the excerpts was a no-brainer. I need to do this. practicing 5th, 6th position. It's like there's all this technique that this is gonna be really good for me to learn. But there was an end goal at the end.
Right.
Teaching, playing professionally. I mean, so that's where I'm confused when we have a kid that is not going to go on that trajectory probably. Why would a lot of teachers keep drilling that kind of a thing? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I guess just repetition. Like, they're just used to, if you're in high school, this is what you do throughout the year. So, like, you have the district excerpts, and then you have state right behind that, and then you start preparing for solo and ensemble. And if you're interested in youth symphony, you have youth symphony auditions after that. And,
right.
So is the question, why would a teacher give out random excerpts or force them to learn the district and state excerpts?
Well,
despite
I'm talking about like so even forget the excerpts thing. I'm talking about more of a bigger question of like, when we're in a lesson, I'm sort of judging what's the purpose long term. Because I'm going back
excerpts
to
it,
of teaching them this really, really high end classical music. Because again, I'm into like jazz and rock, and there's a whole nother part of music instead of just drilling these, this Shostakovich excerpt. There's like that you could give them.
Are you asking about basic excerpts that you would typically find in a professional orchestra audition? So like Don Juan?
Yeah.
Or do you mean just the state and district stuff that high schoolers learn?
I'm not even worried about the even excerpts. That's an example of like a really high-end classical music.
Right.
Like, that's more of the question I'm asking is where I'm kind of rolling around in my head is that when this kid's like, God, I hate these excerpts. I hate this. I would actually even rather do a high-end classical piece that I can like get done and feel like I've actually learned a piece, And so I'm thinking more on the motivation side for the student is where my head's been at for like 8 years. Is as a teacher, if I had the choice to give this kid these excerpts, first of all, that they're never ever going to play again, but they're learning all this technique, they're learning how to work hard for this really, really difficult project, or I could give them a bunch of really fun, like Irish music or something that they're gonna like better. I don't know what to do as a teacher, because like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
I think now I understand what you're saying.
Excerpts is just one example, or even a really hard.
So you're saying, how do you decide what to use to teach certain things?
Sort of, yeah, and because for me, like again for myself, I have this choice of keep this kid really interested in music and make it really fun, but still give them something that's not Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, or give them this excerpt that they absolutely hate, and also that they're never going to play again for the rest of their life.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't give out little excerpts to learn things. So, I kind of have the same books that I use with all the students. So, honestly, I probably get more bored than other kids because I'll have like 5 kids playing out of the same things because I use the same books, but I'll use like, for instance, my first etude book is typically Wolfhart in some way, shape, or form. Either it's the early Wolfhart stuff, and then I use, I don't know if you're familiar with like all the opuses, but Opus 45 has 2 books. The first book is all first position. The second book is up to like extended third. So like they'll use extensions in third position or something. And then I'll go on to Mazas and Kreutzer and on down the line.
Kreutzer, gross.
I'm just kidding. I have a viola student on it, and I've never played it on viola, and I'm just like, this is terrible. Just because like viola is huge, and I'm a violinist. I will teach viola, but I will never play this stuff on the viola. Okay, but anyways, so I use all these same books, and within those, I know which techniques I can teach where. My big techniques are like some things with bowing. So first of all, I always want them to make sure the student can grip the string, and because that's important for sound production. Yeah. And so I'll have something where I'll teach them some kind of martelet or a slow bow exercise. So for instance, the first etude in Mazas, it's super slow. And it's whole notes, and I'm like, you're gonna play this counting the 8th note. Yeah, right. So that they have to play each whole note as 8 beats. But they also have to get a crescendo and a decrescendo in there. So they're doing this, and this works on like their pronation of their hand so that they add pressure as they go toward the tip of the bow. all this stuff. So I use that, and then for certain techniques, so like if there's a lot of string crossings or something, there's multiple etudes to practice the circular motion, so that and it's like, well, okay, you have string crossings, think of the double stop, and then do this. So like I'll teach them those little concepts.
Right.
But and the thing is with those, they're so redundant, the etudes, because it's an etude. It's meant to be boring, so you learn a technique. I'll tell them you only need to practice the first couple lines, and the students seem so relieved when I tell them that. And if they need to keep working on it, then I use the next couple lines.
Yeah.
So like I'll do it that way, so they're not just practicing the first 2 lines.
So you're basically a cheater. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you could say that. You could say that. I have a student right now. It kills me. Like laughing. Like I'm just like, oh my god, you're crazy. He's super into violin. He's going to be a 9th grader in Lee Summit, and I'll tell him, oh, you only need to work on this page. He'll work on 2 other pages on top of that. I'm just like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, and it's crazy. And I'm just like, oh my god. But I'll tell him to do something, and like he'll practice it wrong, or like he'll practice it wrong over the time, and I'm just like, oh, I wish he didn't practice that. So those things come up. But
so say that again. So I didn't ask that question very well earlier. So what I'm trying to get at is get a more handle on motivating my students, right? That's really what question I'm rolling into my head, and that's kind of the art of it, And one thing that I've been struggling with is how much fun and how much technique is always the balancing act, because you can give them. You can just drill Kreitzer all day, or drill these excerpts all day, or drill this high end. Technique.
I don't know if I motivate too much, but I try to not have it be a discouraging thing for the student, and that's where I only assign like 2 lines.
Okay.
Because if they have like a whole page of something that's really challenging, that's gonna make them not want to practice it, because it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one way it helps, and honestly, I just kind of force them to do it. And if they can't get it, they have to keep doing it for me, and I'm just gonna torture them during their lesson, basically. And I'm not mean about it, but I'm gonna make them. That's gonna be the majority of their lesson if they're not focusing on it. And I'm like, if you want your lesson to be different, you're gonna practice this. Or whatever. And they eventually start practicing it because they're like, okay, I'm sick of doing this.
Right.
But I guess I try to keep those less fun things at a minimum, and maybe that helps, because usually the kids really like the solos. I always play through a solo or something before, and I'm like, how do you think that sounds? They're like, oh, that sounds fun. And so I'm like, okay, great. And if they say, I'll be like, okay, we're not going to learn that, because if it doesn't sound interesting to the student, they're not going to want to practice it.
Yeah, okay.
So, but I'm only usually willing to do that like past Suzuki Book 3.
Yeah.
Like I make them play basically every song from 2 and 3 for sure, but like Book 1, depending on how old they are.
Yeah.
If they're in middle school, I'll usually start them at etude, so that we're working on low 2 and high 2. But if they're in high school, I'll usually start them a little later.
Sure.
But I usually make them work on pretty much everything, and then I'll use some Barbara Barber stuff. I have a student right now who I'm worried she's going to quit soon, but she can't take orchestra and choir because of all of her other classes, and so I'm trying to figure out. But I gave her a Mozart sonata, the E minor, and and I played it for her, and she's like, I want to learn that. I was like, awesome, we're learning it then. We did the Dvorak Sonatina in G, the first movement, and she really liked that.
Right.
So I'm trying to I have to think out of the box.
Right.
But I try to find these pieces that they think sound nice, so that they want to practice it and learn it.
Yeah, because you said that, okay, so you gave them this 2 lines thing out of an etude, and then when they don't do it, you said, so I basically just torture them, for the whole lesson. See, I consider that to be, I know what you mean, where you're not screaming at them, you're not being mean, but you're setting the law down. You know what I mean? That we're gonna do this. You're not getting out of it. We're gonna do. And so that's where I'm at an impasse with. I don't know what to do.
It's risky,
right?
It's
and that's
risky
what I'm saying.
Because you might get that student who just wants to quit,
right?
And you might lose them, but usually they're good if they really want to be there. And it's just that thing where I'm like, this is how it's going to go if you keep. I'm not going to let you just brush this off and then hope I forget about it or something.
Yeah, that's interesting. And because I know that, I mean, for me, I basically, I use improv a lot in mine instead of etudes, basically. So for instance, when you're doing like spiccato, or you're learning some new skill, I'll do an improv with them, or do some call and answer with them instead of give them an etude of whatever new technique thing they're doing, low twos or spiccato or dynamics, or that's the way I do it. And because I think improv is more fun than etudes, because etudes sucked.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tend to do. So basically, I give like 0 etudes, like ever. I just never do them, and maybe I should. I need to go find a better book.
It also depends on the student.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel like the student's able to create something with improv, why not use that?
Right.
Whereas if someone's kind of slacking, or they're not putting much effort into the improv, then maybe they're the one that you need to be like, okay, you're going to play these things.
Right.
Because I know I would have been difficult to work with improv, because I'm such a literal person. Like, I'm really bad at creating, like just thinking of stuff off the top of my head, unless I have something to go by, like a chord chart or something.
Right.
But having that etude, I was like, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to play. Now my teacher added this aspect to it, so like spiccato or something.
Right. Yeah.
So I would say I think that's great.
Yeah, and I mean,
but it just depends on the student, of course.
Yeah.
And if they're able to make
and
something.
So take me through a lesson, a general random lesson that you would do. Like do you guys do warm ups? Do you guys like a half-hour lesson with like a 7th grader or something? What would you do?
So with my 7th graders, usually this is the time that they're supposed to be starting shift. So it also depends on the student. Sometimes I teach certain students because they're behind in school, but then I have the other kids who are ahead and they're really interested in things. So I think the majority, though, would be the kids who are more ahead. So I'll go off that.
Yeah.
So if they're working on shifting, I have them do Introduction to the Positions book by Whistler. And we'll have, depending on how long the etude is, like they have some that are only like 1 or 2 lines, depending on where they are in the book, and then they have others that are like half a page to a page. Right. We'll go over whatever I assign in there. So the majority of those kids are learning 3 to 4 lines each lesson.
Okay.
Of these 3rd or 5th position exercises.
Okay.
So we'll go over that. If there's intonation issues, I always talk about this finger spacing. I'll be like, okay, who's squishy? That's the term I use for half step, because that's usually the most important thing, is that the kids need to know who's squishy. Because if they're not sure, they just kind of set their finger down, and it's just a non-existent note. I was like, okay, if we're on the piano and you have C and C sharp, you're playing something in between that doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah.
You need to know where it goes. And so we'll talk about spacing. And honestly, I'll spend 10 to 15 minutes, and if they do really well on it, then we'll go over the next part. So I always try to kind of have them read through a little bit, at least the first half or something of the next part, so that they know we're on the same page. So I'm not just sending them, okay, practice that, and be on your way.
Right.
Okay, and then the other part, so with only 30 minutes, I'll usually only do that, and I'll count that as scales, because each page will have the scale there as well. And then I'll have their repertoire of some sort.
Whatever piece they're doing.
Yes. So whatever solo piece they're doing, and I'll have them play through. I'll say, they'll be like, "Well, how fast should I play?" I'm like, "Whatever you practiced." I don't want to tell you something and you practice it another way, because then that's road to disaster.
Right.
For a lot of students.
Yeah.
And so we'll work on that. And if we haven't completed the piece yet, I'll add in another chunk depending on how well they did. Or if we're still kind of struggling through that, I'll be like, okay, let's work on that again. You know why? Because we will have addressed it throughout. Like usually it's a finger, like they're not very familiar with it, and I'm like, okay, if you're not very familiar, let's keep what it is.
Right.
Or else it's just they're gonna be like, oh gosh, I'm not even able to play this. Then I also have to learn this. Like that's too much for most of these kids these days, especially with all the other stuff.
So you give them some technique. I mean,
I tried with the 30-minute lesson.
Yeah.
There are very few students I have who are not in some sort of space. 2 separate books.
Yeah.
One book being repertoire, and then the other being either technique or scales or something.
Right.
And I usually focus on scales because to me that's more important. And I'm able to do shifting stuff with scales too, so I can figure things out.
So in regards to that, my other question is, so posture is another absolute, for anybody who hasn't seen violin, it is ridiculous. It's something you just can't even, and this is where I'm at, is again back to the kind of motivation question, is that, how much do I drill this stupid technique and this posture, and then how much do I get onto an actual song so that they actually want to be in this lesson right now?
Yeah.
You know, it's always the teetering act, because they can't play. If they don't do all this stuff, like violin is not going to happen. It's not, you know, I mean, they've got to learn, you know, where their fingers go, and maybe a little bit of technique. But what usually happens with me is that I see, you know, any of us that are older and that have been, you know, teaching a while and playing, you know, 20, 30 years, we can look at them and see 6 things in 5 seconds, right? I mean, you can see that's not the problem at all with teaching, at least with me. You know, I mean, the judging contest is the same thing. I mean, I see 6 things. Well, what do I say? You know, which one do I pick? Because what happens with me is that, like, my brain is so far beyond what they're doing. You know, it's like I can see the 6 things in 1 second. Well, you know, if what I tell them that's going on in my head is that I'm going to drop 6 things to fix right now, and you just can't do that. You can't drop 6 on them. So then you've got to sit here and go, okay, which was the worst one, or which was the, you know, if you have pitch, left hand wrist, okay, pinky on your bow hand, and then you've got rhythm, and then you've got up your tone, and, you know,
everything's
elbow.
wrong with the student.
Yeah, and so which one do you pick? How long do you hit them on it? You know, like, the next lesson, do you come back to the same one? I mean, this is kind of the art of teaching I'm talking about right now, I guess, you know.
Yeah, but I find this a very difficult thing as well. For me, I'm actually really bad about, I'm really bad about adjusting certain things. So, like, I'm actually really bad about fixing kids' bow hands. Like, I know there's something wrong with it, but I'm like, okay, they're making an okay sound right now. I'm worried about where their fingers are going.
Yeah.
So, like, I almost always focus really hard on the left hand, and I neglect the right hand. And some teachers are able to balance it, and I haven't learned that yet.
Yeah.
But I know that the best thing to do is always focus on one thing at a time until it's fixed. Because if you give them those 6, I mean, obviously you're not giving all 6 at once.
Right.
You can say something about all of them, but the one you want to fix, they're going to think about all 6, and it's just going to fall. They're going to fall over.
That's like overwhelming. I mean, you're overwhelming.
Yeah, it's really overwhelming
Yeah.
if you're saying this, and they're having to think about all of them. And whereas some of my students, I just want their elbow away from their side.
Yes,
So I take my bow, and I'm sitting there, and as soon as they see my bow coming, they go, and I'm like, okay, how do you fix this situation? And so, I mean...
So that's your thing. Your one thing that, you know, might be a tendency, you know, and we see this all the time. They're dropped down. They're not,
and I'll take my instrument, and I'll even put the stand up, because sometimes it's because they're trying to look at the music in a certain way, and to do that they have to.
Yeah, they're doing this, right?
Especially some of these kids I've been teaching since they were in middle school. They're now taller than I am, and some of them are on wire stands.
Yeah.
Oh no, you don't. I thought. No, you don't have one.
Yeah.
And those only go, like, they're barely tall enough for me, and I'm not a very tall person. And you know. And so, like, sometimes I'll joke around and I'll put it up on a table, if they have a table in the area or whatever.
And now they're here.
Well, and then I'm like, now we need to lower it.
Yeah, right,
and I'm like, there we go.
Because that's a big orchestra problem, right? I mean, we have the stand here, and then, you know, about 30 minutes in, where, you know, we've hunched over, and now this is accident. Even if it's away, now it's on the, you know. I make them stand, you know, every.
Oh yeah, my students all stand in their lessons.
Yeah. So that's kind of where, because my big thing is how do I motivate them, and I've come up with this these 9 different things that you could, you know, different things, and one of them is deciding repertoire wise what I give them, and then the second thing is kind of the how long do I hit them with the technique. And so what I've started to do is kind of not even make a goal, and I should make a goal, but in my head I've gone, okay, in the last 2 lessons we've been hitting wrist down, so I'm like, I'm gonna do that for another 5 weeks. You know, I'm gonna force this wrist down. I don't care what they say, you know, as nice as I can, but I'm gonna kind of keep right. I'm gonna keep hitting it, like, for a month or 2 months, and keep them Not wrist down, and kind of let their bow grip just be crap. And is that what you kind of tried to do too? Yeah.
But the nice thing is their bow hold usually doesn't get worse. Mm-hmm. It just kind of stays however crappy it is.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the nice thing about it. Is like, well, that's just staying the way it was, and so.
Yeah. So that was one of them that I've just still, as even a young teacher, I need to get a grasp on that, is how hard to do the technique, because if I just drill them hard, I mean, no kid quits over like one lesson or one moment. It's a multiple of moments, 4 pieces in a row that they absolutely hate, and they're like, dude, this sucks. 5 weeks in a row, he's drilling this only technique, and
I have had students go, "Oh God, there's another minuet in the first Suzuki book." Yeah, I've had that. They're like, "Minuet 3."
This sucks.
Yeah.
But dude, it's Bach.
Yeah.
At least it's Bach.
But then most of them hear it and they're like, "Oh, I like that piece." Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. So with this idea of this technique, so you said that you might kind of sit there if it's a etude, and if it's a certain student, you might kind of go rogue on them and just make them. I mean, like you said, you might sit there and kind of say, "No, I'm in charge here. We're gonna do this etude. I can see in your face that you're trying to get out of it. You're trying to." You're trying to manipulate, you're trying to, give me excuses or whatever, and you're just going to be like, "No, we're doing this." And I have a problem with going there. Of being that kind of a teacher where you're just going to, and I keep calling it like the muscle, right? Yeah. Like a gangster, where they're just going to come in, "No, you're going to do this or you're dead,"
Yeah.
And there's some teachers that can go drill sergeant on them, and I use this analogy a lot with Steve Cruz, who taught at UMKC. He was a high schooler, went into UMKC, taking lessons in high school, and he just went, "Dude, if you're not going to practice, you're gone. I've got 12 other viola players lined up out the door ready to take your spot. So if you don't do it, you're chopped." And that's when it comes back to, because I don't have 47 students, that's a whole nother angle to this, is now I can sort of, if you got 47 students, you can adjust your... you can adjust your attitude on them, because if 4 drop, I mean, you still got like 42 students or something, like, is that part of this process too? Because you need the money, so you got to like just put up with their crap. I mean, is it like, you know what I mean?
I do. Okay, so I'm fortunate enough. I've gotten to the point where I don't care if I drop a student, because I'm in the 30s.
Yeah.
Like, I have plenty of students, but I mean, I don't have like a wait list or anything. It's not like kids are waiting to have study with me. Like, I'm just fortunate. Like, the teachers have been like, "Oh, you should contact somebody on this list," and luckily I subbed in Lee Summit, so the kids are like, "Oh, Mr. Hassell, I know who he is from substitute teaching." So I have kind of relaxed with some students. I'll almost take away the technique stuff because I just know they're not practicing. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take your money, basically. And I mean, that sounds horrible.
It's what it is.
But basically, I just kind of get nice. And I'm like, okay, that was okay. I'm still kind of I'm honest. I'll be like, well, that was not very good, but you can do this to make it better. Type, like the students in like Suzuki Book 2, I just started making her do scales to fill time now.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, you're not going to practice this. I know that. Your dad sits right there, and he obviously doesn't care that you don't practice, because we talk about it in the lesson. And she's honest about it.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I'm just going to make you play things then. Because I mean, that's what the lessons have turned into. She's just playing whatever I tell her to play. She doesn't whine about anything. It's great. So I take away... for her.
Yes. Right?
That's literally what it becomes, is
yeah.
I'm practicing with her. Yeah. So for instance, she's doing a piece out of Suzuki Book 2. I'm like, okay, we have this extended 4. It's the Gavotte by Lully. And Okay, and then we'll work on the rhythm of the same section that she keeps messing up. Bum 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 ba da da dum bum ba da 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 dum ba da. Everyone plays the rhythm wrong until someone yells at them about it, and so of course we end up just end up practicing, and so like it's pleasant, but I feel like they're basically wasting their money, but I'm gonna work with her, just because.
Right. So you're obviously adjusting to each student.
Yes, I very much so. In that case, some students I push them to do things because I know they can, but this one I can't really read if she's motivated enough, or if she just likes the idea of having extra violin time. I don't know.
Right.
And so I have adjusted.
Yeah.
That's literally what I've done.
Right.
And I've started being better about that. I used to be kind of mean to these kids. I'd be like, well, if you're not practicing, this is frustrating for me because you're not getting anywhere. Right. And I've learned to suppress that. Yeah. I think because I'm like, oh, this actually happens with a lot of kids. It's not just a few. And I'm like, I have to adjust to it or else I'm not going to have any students.
Right. So another idea that I had, again, with this, this idea of motivation is I'll have all these kids that I know, they're not going to be New York Phil, and so I tried to like I was discussing this other student before we started, and I was thinking like one of his mom was like he responds to you. You have no, like, she was explaining to me that like you have no idea how big a deal this is as a parent for me right now, because he doesn't respond to anybody, and he's responding to you, and so that was one of many moments that made me think of this idea of like, again, what the hell are we doing here? Like if they're not gonna, do this as a living, or they're just gonna kind of quit after high school. So what is the purpose? And the only things that I've been able to come up with is all the non-musical benefits of music, right? The learning the teamwork, the learning hard work, the not make excuses, and maybe even the time management, and usually when my problem is I love psychology so much that I know that every single time something happens in lesson, I can 100% trace that back to something non-musical. Right? When they don't practicing, that's a parent-student time management thing, right? If they're making excuses with this, I bet $1 million they make excuses for homework too. It's excuses problem. It's not a music problem. So that's when I get these kids and that's really my argument against the excerpts. But is the excerpts really the point, or is it we're using this lesson to get this kid to maybe trust somebody? Because that was maybe one of his problems, is he just doesn't trust the world, and he came in here and gave me the death look, and then when he kind of got to know me 3 or 4 times, he kind of started opening up and trusting me a little bit, and that was the point of the lesson, is for him to trust somebody. You know, it had nothing to do with music. It had to do with him opening up to an adult figure or whatever, and so that would be my argument against why I think the excerpts are dumb to do it in that way. But Mulvannon, on our last little show, he was like, no, that's what you're doing with the hard work. You're setting a very hard goal in front of them, and it is non-musical. The excerpts are non-musical, is that you're setting this hard goal in front of them, and they're pushing themselves towards a hard goal. I was like, that's a good answer. That's a good, so what do you do with a lot of the times when you want to sit down and have the come to Jesus meeting with them? Like, how do you usually handle stuff like that?
I haven't had to do that in a while. I used to have to do it all the time. But I also have kept the same group of students for a while. I've had some students for 3 or 4 years now, and I've only lived here for just over 4 years. Wow. And so I'm like, okay, so those kids, I'm not having to, but so I haven't had to in a while. I can't even tell you the last time I did. I think, honestly, I may have just quit doing it because I could just tell the student didn't really care enough. And so I was just like, okay, well, if you practiced this, that you would get it just fine, but then they don't practice. So, like, it sounds like we're having a come to Jesus moment, but nothing comes out of it. Because I had it with the same girl that I was mentioning who didn't practice, and her dad's there and knows that she doesn't practice each week. Like, I literally say, oh, how much did you practice? I didn't practice. I'm like, all right. That's usually what happens, because I'm just like, thank you for your honesty.
So does the come to Jesus meeting work, is kind of what you're saying.
With kids who have shame. That's something that my orchestra director in college talked about it. He's like, you know what drives me nuts about you kids these days? You have no shame. And I was like, I do. Because I'm embarrassed if I can't play my music. And his point was, in those rehearsals, some kids were playing so badly that he couldn't do anything. The only thing he could do is tell us to practice, basically, and then like just have people stumble through the music. And like some of us could play it fine, and the kids who are actually kind of embarrassed when you call them out about it, they're the ones who usually come around. But the ones who don't show that shame, like they just don't care. They're the ones who just don't. They literally don't care. That's them, and I'm like, okay, you don't care, then fine.
Yeah, and that's the other question that I've thought of a lot is that. Let's say something is like a stage fright situation, because stage fright has absolutely nothing to do with music. Again, it has to do with you worried about other people's judgment, and so like when I'd have something like that, or somebody's making excuses, or somebody's not working with their own parent to find a practice time, or rearranging their schedule, or they're not in 5 freaking activities. That's another one that's really like,
oh yeah, you and I have talked about that.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And
yes.
So when I have those moments, what I wanted to do, especially definitely a couple years ago, is I was under the illusion that I actually have control over this situation right now. Is first of all, and second of all, that this come to Jesus meeting is going to be, somebody's going to look back in 40 years and go, oh, Mr. Foster took me aside, and oh man, it helped, it changed my life and all this crap, and
don't we wish?
I know, don't we wish? And so I'm wondering if one of the questions that her down there has been asking me about is that maybe the question is the when also, and also the if, this big come to Jesus meeting. Is the when really important? Of when do you do a day where they're being really receptive to you? Is that going to go over better than the day when they're really pissed off? Yeah, probably. And also, do you even need to have the conversation? Is this a conversation that I want to really bad? I want to have that conversation with them, but is it going to help anyway?
Right.
So why do
Sometimes
why even
it just
do it?
takes up more of their lesson time. Because you can't. All you're going to do is sit there and practice with them. That's what ends up happening with those kids. And I usually start it with, I'm not here to practice. But I mean, it's just something, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sometimes kind of a jerk about it, especially if I've kind of gotten fed up at some point. I'll hide my frustration with talking.
Yeah, right. That's funny, because those moments, they don't happen with one moment, right? I mean, this is a thing that's habitual, right? I mean, this is a student that's done the same thing over the last 3 months.
After a first lesson or something, I'm not going to give them a speech.
Yeah.
Okay. This has to do with either things were going really well for a while and then something suddenly happened, or something that's happened with me is sometimes as kids like go through adolescence, they get moody, and I don't put up with that. And usually they're good, but I've had some kids who like, it's like night and day how different, like they'll be really pleasant up until they start getting moody, and then they get bitchy.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh no.
I hate that when they get bitchy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
like I usually go and get their parent at that point.
Sure. Yeah.
I will get their parent, and then they start freaking out.
Right.
And they're like, oh, he's not messing around. I'm like, no, I'm not, because you're being rude.
Right.
Like, I am not taking my time to come over here for you to give me this cold, like, or just like this attitude where, like, if I ask you to do something, you just roll your eyes.
Right.
Oh no.
Talk about parents for a second, because what I've tried to do is because I'm going to their houses and their mom is right there, not in the room with me, but for sure after the lesson, like. I go have, almost not really a mini parent conference, but almost every lesson, because they're right there, telling them how they're doing, yada, yada. I
typically
wonder.
the parent will ask,
Yeah.
how did it go?
Right.
Or whatever, and I tell them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Not meanly. I'll just be like, well, we had to have a chat about attitude.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you look at it as I've always said this as this 3-part team? You know, you've got parent, student,
teacher.
You know,
Yes.
and I think a lot of parents look at it as no, this is a 2-part team. You know, teacher, student.
No.
And then they, you know, go off and get on their email, and I don't blame them. They've been busy. Some people are totally busy all day, and they need that extra half an hour to not go crazy during their day.
Their half an hour babysitter teaching violin.
Is that what we are, as babysitter?
In some cases, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've run into that. Very much.
So like, have you had any like major issues with any parents or parents that were like ridiculously awesome that were?
Honestly, more really awesome.
Yeah.
Like I've had parents. For instance, actually this week, one of my students, I've had him since he was in 4th grade. I've had him 3 years, and he's also kind of going through adolescence, so he's kind of getting moody. But he's a super talented kid. I push him. I'm like, I'm making you do it this way because you can.
Yeah.
Other kids cannot do what you're doing.
Yeah.
But sometimes he struggles with practicing. But the mom will actually take responsibility a lot of times.
Yeah.
The mom, she'll be like, we didn't practice a lot this week. I'll take responsibility for that. I didn't really push it a lot. It's summer. I get it too. And I was like, well, I don't want him to practice all the time. Like just a few times. And this kid's talented enough that he can practice very little and get by really well. And he's just that fortunate. And but I do have some of those parents, and then I have other parents who they do absolutely nothing. I mean, they're not like cold to me. Like they'll be like, okay, well, we'll have a chat, but I don't think they ever really have a chat with their kid. They just tell me they'll do that to make it think that they're putting effort toward it, and I'm just like, whatever. We'll see if anything changes. So
have you ever had the you tell them, you know, so maybe, you know, if you guys want to, you know, you can, you know, kind of encourage him at home to practice, and then you get that glazed over look from the parents. They're like, like, you mean like me do crap? You mean like me do work? Dude, I've had that before while I'm doing, that's in the middle of my Come to Jesus meeting where we're all sitting there together, right? And then, you know, and they're kind of like, you know.
I have to do something.
They're not even mad at me. They're just like, they're that, this guy thinks like,
deer in the headlights.
I have to do something.
Going to Mizzou in Columbia, there was this really amazing Suzuki teacher. Or there is. Sorry, she's still there. And she actually makes the parents I don't know how she does this. They sign a contract. The parent has to be at every lesson, and the parent has to practice with the student. Yeah,
that's what we had with
this
Suzuki,
teacher. And this teacher's studio, I went to one of her recitals. I was like, oh my God. Every single kid had this in their bow hand. Usually, you're lucky to get this instead of this or whatever. And every single kid, though. And I think it was just such a high expectation, but she had a huge studio for such a small town. And I don't know how she does that. But I also have never asked her. I just asked her, I was like, oh, your parents work with your students? She's like, yes, I require it. I was like, wow. See, because I've only had maybe 1 or 2 students total in all the students I've ever taught.
See, that's the core of what I'm trying to get at. See, that right there is what I call the muscle, right? She goes, no, you're gonna do this, right? You're right.
If you're gonna, but she's one of the,
from me,
but she's one of those teachers who the parents want with their kids with because she has such a great reputation, and it's Columbia. It's such a small town. She's the only Suzuki, like the only serious Suzuki teacher like that. Because she has her master's in Suzuki pedagogy from Colorado, at Boulder.
So that's what I'm getting at is that and that's obviously what I would eventually want to. I mean, our reputations are not even close to the same right now. She's older. She has a studio built up, and because of her numbers, but also I wonder, and this is maybe something that I know that you and I talked about a couple years ago, is the idea of you, right when they set in there, I mean, before they even get to the lesson, you've set a certain expectation with your pricing, right? You've set a certain expectation with this little sheet that you give them. The student will be expected to and then they sit there and sign it, and they, you've set this expectation before they even start the lessons. And I think that's something that I probably need to start doing. What do you think about that? Like before the lessons even start, you set this idea of what this is going to be.
I think that is easy to implement later when you are more comfortable, like as a teacher. And what I mean is like with your numbers, like because that can also drive away people. They'll be like, "Oh, you want us to do all this stuff?
Yeah.
Well, this isn't what we were bargaining for." So I guess it could be risky in that case. But I mean, you can pull it out and be like, "Well, you said that you would do this if you're going to remain in my studio, or else you have to find another teacher."
Oh, you mean later when you have more numbers? Not later in the students.
Yeah, not later in the student, but later when you have numbers,
yeah.
because it sounds like you're saying like that initially, when they're about to start studying with you, this is the expectation.
Right.
And then I have expectations from lesson to lesson. I'll be like, next time I expect you to be able to do this.
Sure.
I've been telling myself to do that a lot more, so I can be like, this is what I expect from this.
Write it down for them, and then hand it to you have an actual goal.
Have you ever had it like the kids keep a notebook and all of them lose them?
No. Yeah.
Every one of my kids have lost them, and so I quit doing it. So I just write all over their music, and I hate it because I run out of space on something, or there's not enough space to write in the first place.
They don't look at it. That's
that
what
too.
To me. They never lose it.
I'm that smartass who goes up to the music and say, "What did I write there?" And they're like, "Huh?" Like they're totally oblivious to it. And I'm like, "What did I write?" And they're like, "Huh?" Like they're like just totally like, "You wrote something?" And I'm there.
I think they think it's for me. In general, they think, and that there's a little bit of truth to that because I need to look.
I can see why they could think.
I don't know what I gave you last week. I have a lot of students.
That's part of why I write so much because
right.
I've gotten to the point like I used to be able to remember every single thing I was working on with every student until I got to like in the 20s.
Right.
And now I'm like, oh God, what are we doing? Or some kids progress. Some of my kids have progressed really quickly. I can't keep track of what they're working on. I'll be like, the last thing I'll remember, I'll be like, oh, you're not working on that anymore. Oh,
right. And all you need is a little reminder, right? I mean, you just need barely
and usually as soon as they start playing whatever it is, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's why.
Right, that's funny. Yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, this is, this show is a little bit to give other people advice, but it's also for me to kind of think out some stuff too, because I just don't know if I'm probably at this moment in general is with giving them this certain kind of repertoire. How much technique am I just drilling the crap out of them with? Setting up concerts, talking to the parents. All these things that could motivate them. I'm trying to find a good way to do that, and I just wonder if I'm, because it feels like I'm going too hard on them. Like it feels like that I'm doing these come to Jesus meetings like every 2 lessons, and I'm doing them probably too much, and so that's why it feels like I'm going too hard on them. But then I hear all these other teachers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like easy, I never do anything, but it's not because I couldn't and I'm not willing to. It's not that I don't know how to do it. It's like I'm purposely choosing not to. I'm purposely choosing not to just every single lesson drill them on 3 technique. Okay, your pinky on this hand, and now curve your thumb. And I'm saying it sometimes, but I'm just purposefully not doing it because again, I want them to like it. But I know that part of my motivation is like when I play a song really good. And that's my other thing with little kids, is that everybody's been urging me with the really little kids is use more games, make a little, I've heard this belt idea, like the karate belts, like black belt, blue belt, and so you get to these different levels, and then they get their new little blue belt, and it's so fun, and like, I'm just like, this is lame, to me, I'm like, dude, play the song great, and you're gonna feel great. But you've got to do that other stuff. But then for me, I'm not motivated by that. I'm motivated by, I want to get that C sharp perfectly in tune because that's what the song's supposed to sound like. That's why I'm motivated. Yeah, but they're not, so I'm like,
Even in the public schools, it's all about games. Because I think that one of the schools I've subbed in has had this like belt system for like, and what it is, I think the band teacher uses it, and it had to do with like what techniques that student had accomplished. Right. Because they had done this many, they were a red belt. I don't even know. Right. Whatever. And then if they had mastered all of them, they were a black belt. Right. Or whatever. And I think that's something that some kids like because they have more of an understanding of their progress. Because if they know like there are 5 levels they're like, oh, I'm at level 1. Oh, now I'm at level 2, you know?
Right.
So whereas like just being like, oh, that note's out of tune, that doesn't really, they'll just be like, oh, he's going to yell at me about that again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that like,
usually the games are really helpful for the kids. Like I have a 5-year-old student who's one of my students' little sisters, and the mom was like, oh, she wants to try to learn violin or whatever. And I try to do as many silly things as possible.
Right. And this is for really little kids. We're talking about the kindergarten through 4th. You know, I mean, when they get in high school, they don't give a crap about these.
Oh yeah, I don't do that with middle school or high school kids.
Yeah.
And I don't have very many of those really young kids, but I know it's something that helps motivate them, and so I've tried to do that. Like one of the 5-year-olds, she loves doing the Boholt song, the up like a rocket, down like the rain, and she'll be like, "Can we do the Boholt song?" I'm like, yeah, as soon as you do this. And so now it's been a motivator. So
now that's a motivator.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, it's just sometimes it's hard just to get her to do anything other than like get distracted.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, and that's another example, what you just said right there, that I've been refusing to do, the Bold song. I'm like, just, do the, I'm totally cool with doing the little exercises and all that stuff, and I'm like, I mean,
honestly, I didn't need
this stupid little
I didn't need any of that stuff when I was in 4th grade learning
or
whatever, because I started in public school program.
All right.
And I didn't care about that. I wanted to learn the violin, and so I just remember not caring about the game. So I actually I think that was actually a bad thing though, because I didn't learn any games.
Yeah.
So like now I'm having to do research on figuring out games to play.
Right.
And like. There are some neat ones though, so like it's been a great learning experience for me.
Right.
Because that is actually something I would love to be able to do, is teach like little 4-year-olds how to play and like have these itty bitty kids playing. Like I just think it'd be a lot of fun.
It's pretty fun, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, but you have to know so much in order to be able to attempt it. So like how to keep them focused, right? With that the games, right? And so I'm trying to learn little games.
And that's another non-musical thing too, is that I had a kid, and I always joke about this, is that like we can't even do anything right now. I mean, he's like running around the room. He can't focus at all. This isn't a music problem. This is a focusing problem, So does that need to be that?
Sorry, I think it's hilarious because it's happened to me too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, I just wait.
Yeah. And the thing that I loved about Suzuki is all of kids, and you'll have this too, where they're, and I'm like, oh, so this is why we do our stuff, and
that's why with the 5-year-old, I have a board that she stands on, and she's obsessed with it. Yeah, like she cannot play her violin if she's not on her board standing. Right. So that's the one thing I was like, oh, this is a positive thing.
Maybe I should make one of those and then bring it to every lesson. I know for us,
we just took a box. Her mom orders everything from Amazon, so we cut off one of the flaps of the box, and I let her draw on it. Right. I drew like the thing, like the feet. Things that needed to be clean, but I let her decorate it.
So you do that as an exercise in a lesson.
Yeah. That was the lesson.
Yeah. Was making your box.
Was creating that box.
That's fun. That's cool, man.
And one of my students, I was telling you about him earlier. I made him do solo and ensemble. So he started when he was 4, and he remembers his very first lesson. All he did was color. Right. Or whatever.
Yeah, that's funny. And I know I'm with that too, because I started at 3 years old, so that all that crap I don't remember any of it. I've never remembered not playing.
I didn't even know what a violin was until I was like 10.
but what you were talking about is, as a teacher, having to go back and look for that stuff, and that's definitely with me, because I don't.
I actually ask the student every once in a while, I'll be like, "Do you remember games or anything?" He's like, "Yeah, we played a lot of games." And he was in like a formal Suzuki studio or whatever. They had group class every week, and and he memorized every song. He can still play every song through like book 6 or something.
Yeah, wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
so
he's really good.
we could sit here for forever.
Right.
We've already got an hour and 20, which is amazing.
Oh wow.
I know, I can't believe that. So last big question here. What's your opinion of like ear playing in general?
Playing by ear?
Yeah, because we do a lot of sight reading, obviously, in orchestra and classical in general. What's your...
Honestly, I'm terrible at it. Even with all the ear training and stuff we had to take in school, I'm still terrible at it. I'll arrange music for weddings, and sometimes I'll have to listen to YouTube, and I don't have perfect pitch, but I have my relative pitch is okay. And usually I can tell if like a student's playing something out of tune. and by the intervals, but like playing by ear, I have very little opinions about it because I'm so bad at it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's great when like the same student I've been talking about, he will listen to something that he really likes and he's like, hey, wow. Yeah. And he just plays it. Yeah. And I'm just like, yeah. And like I'm very jealous of these people who can do it so well. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a great thing to be able to do. Mm-hmm. So like I praise it for sure. Yeah, yeah. But unless it gets in the way of reading music. Right. That's the one part where like some of these kids, like this kid student, the first thing I had to do, even though he could play like accolade concerto, so he couldn't read a note. Yeah. Because he was so by rote and he had such a great ear, he didn't have to. Yeah, yeah. And so now I'm making him learn things on his own. Like he's one of the students I won't necessarily go over something in a lesson. I'll be like, you need to learn this. Yeah. And he's actually gotten really a lot better with rhythm. Right. And understanding where the note is. Sometimes he needs like just a position reminder. He won't need a fingering or anything. He'll just be like, oh, it's that note. But then he knows by listening what the pitch should be, because he's really good about listening to all the. So he's really big into youth symphony. Like his big thing, he's obsessed with all of his youth symphony stuff he does. So he's been in academy for a few years now, and whenever the excerpts come up, he always listens to the pieces. Not just like a recording of the excerpt. He listens to the whole piece. Good for him. And he actually really likes the pieces and stuff. So it's really neat. Yeah, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I know I'm always back and forth with that because with Suzuki, I mean, I didn't read till 4th grade. You know, I mean, I was, you know, and I know, you know, tooting my own horn, but you know, I was sitting there in like 5th grade, and I'm like. Silent Night, oh please, you know, just, you know, and then I'm like, oh no, I started on the wrong note, and I'll start on a different note, and then Silent Night again in B or instead of A, and like, so that ear training, you know, ear playing is like breathing to me right now. You know, I'm just really good at, but my sight reading is, you know, pretty, you know, I can do it, you know, obviously, right. but it's something that you have to have if you're going to play an orchestra. It's just you can't, you just can't. And that was one thing with me, you know? Because because I'm so bad at playing by ear, I always just read the music. And I remember even in 4th grade when I first started learning, I was reading them as notes, not like 3 or 2. 2 on D, 3 on D. I was actually reading G, F sharp. Yeah, wow, good for you. Well, no, and I think that's why, honestly, not to toot my own horn or whatever, I'm actually really good at sight reading. Yeah. And I think that's why, because I was exactly the opposite. Yeah. I was a very, you had to tell me how to do it type kid. I couldn't just figure it out.
And you weren't staring at numbers the whole time.
And I think that benefited me. But on top of that, my pianist in Columbia, she went to Juilliard and Yale. Like amazing pianist. She started Suzuki piano. She said she's like admitted I'm actually not a very good sight reader. Yeah. I was like, really? Mm-hmm. And we sight read a sonata, and she did fine, right. Just like you you do just fine playing, but like you kind of miss a few things, or you might flub a rhythm or something like that. But she said one thing she can do, and maybe you're in the same boat. She can learn music really fast. Yeah. And so, and that was one thing. Whereas me, I kind of depend on my sight reading for some gigs that I do or whatever. And sometimes it works, but other times it makes me uneasy because I haven't really looked at the music. Yeah. Like I'll be a little nervous, you know. Right.
So yeah, I don't know. You know, I know today we talked a lot about kind of motivation, because that's something that I'm really obsessed with right now, because all of our studios sometimes go kind of up and down with numbers, you know. I mean, you get up to 17 and then you're back down to 10 again, and then some of it also I need to probably on my end kind of realize that this is a little bit what it is, you know. They either, for myself, I mean, they either go about 3 weeks or, you know, like you said, like 3 years, and that's been consistent. You know, they're either, it's not necessarily with me or against me necessarily, but it's, you know, kept them for 2, 3, 4 years, or they're done after 3 and they're just like, this sucks, you know. Right. And so I'm trying to figure out if what I don't have control over is how much I have control over how much advertising I do, but if they're gonna call me, I can't make them do a lesson, you know. Right. So my philosophy so far is do my best of what I have control over to give the best lesson that I can as part of the how to get more money myself, because one student for a year, that's like $800 to $1,200, you know. I mean, so it's like, and so
I've thought about how much some of the parents spend on this. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, and that's what happens, at least with me, is that when I get a student that works, that sort of cares and they sort of kind of practice and they listen to me, they go from like below middle of the pack to second chair like every time, within a year. I mean, it's like clockwork. And so when I get but I'm wondering if I'm not really special in any way. It's just when any teacher gets a student that works really good, then they do that.
I've realized
so maybe
it's mostly, I think, students, because like if someone went and saw every single one of my students perform, they would see a huge range in kids. Like, actually, for instance, I have students in where I went to high school in Raytown, and I have they're both violas. They're both the same year. Their orchestra teacher favorites one of them. I don't know how to say that. Like her favorite is this one student. Like she's giving her an opportunity next year to play with the orchestra. This little DeBarrio Herbery, and she was like 5th chair all district, which really surprised me, honestly. Like she was playing well, but I couldn't believe that she did that well at district. And so she's been really successful this year, and she got like a 1 at state on her solo, whereas before she had never been to state, and this is her junior year. And then this other student who's the same year, she freaked out. And like every time she played in front of somebody else, she was playing way better than this other student, for instance. But she freaked out in front of the teacher when she was playing, and like forgot how to play 16th notes is what it was. And so the teacher actually texted me and was like, "Hey, I think you picked the wrong piece for the student." I'm like, "How out of 30-something kids do I pick one wrong piece for a kid who they can't learn?" And it was Hofmeister Concerto. She was playing great in her lessons. I was like, "Oh man, this is going to be awesome." Yes. Yeah. I was like, "This is going to be awesome." Totally freaked out. Played horribly. She sight read it better than she played it at districts. And I was like, "This is why the teacher thinks you can't play this stuff, because she's freaking out." And I was like, because I was worried that she was going to think that I was terrible. Or whatever. It's like, but have you seen all these other students?
I know.
Like,
I know.
Like we usually have a pretty good judgment of what the student, because we're experienced enough.
And that was stage fright, 100%.
Right. Oh, this was 100% stage fright. Even the duet, they were playing great in their lesson. Since they both study with me, I work with them on their duet as well. And they were playing great. And then every time the student had 16th notes, totally freaked out, and you couldn't even hear any of the notes. I was like, like I was just like, I can't believe this is happening, because in the studio recital she's totally fine, but then suddenly and I think it has this teacher, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, because I really like working with the student, because I can't believe what she's gone through in the 3 years I've had her. Like she's gone through she's in Kreutzer now. She's my only student I've ever had in Kreutzer, at least as a high schooler. And I think the teacher at school is getting to her. Because she sees her 4 times a week. She only sees me once a week. And I just feel like this teacher is just ruining it for her. But the thing that I like is she still really likes viola. She's even talked about playing in like a community orchestra when she's out of school, because she knows what she wants to do in college. Like she's like, I want to go into biology. I was like, oh, cool. That's awesome. Like you could always play in a community. She's definitely good enough to play in a community orchestra. Or something. So you
think it's her in front of this teacher, and that's what the issue is how the teacher's been treating her. The teacher, at school.
And also I think it's also other than, I don't know what it is about studio recitals being different, but maybe it is the teacher, but it was at solo and ensemble, and also district orchestra. She got this way. She freaked out in the audition. I was like, she should have been up in the just as far as this other girl. And so I can't figure it out.
Yes, because, okay, so
but I think that the teacher is definitely the reason with the solo stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Like the concerto stuff.
Yeah. I wonder if, because like in the actual audition, the teacher's not there.
And that's what's confusing about it for me.
But that is a school thing though. And this other thing is that your stuff is not. And so she has
and she played the first page of Sonnets.
It's the expectation.
Like she played really well.
It's got to be the expectation, because the district orchestra, it's like more that this student is projected that I'm doing this for the teacher. Like the teacher wants me to, or the teacher is going to think worse of me with this.
That's something I've worried about.
I wonder.
Yes.
I wonder if that's what's the linkage there is that it still has to do with that teacher.
Yeah. And I found this out because the teacher, I asked my student about this, and my student said the teacher told me this piece is too hard for me. That's what the teacher told her. And I was like, I wanted to yell.
Right.
Because, no.
See,
I just kept convincing her,
right.
trying to convince her,
right.
that no, this piece is not too hard for you.
Right.
In your head, you think it's hard,
right.
but you're playing it great.
Right.
Like, I was telling her, like, she was playing all the 16th note passages, all the broken thirds and stuff
right.
coming down. I was like, no, this is great. Like, I can hear every note. And then suddenly, this teacher said that, and in performance, in her lessons, she was still fine. But in performance, it turned to shit.
Yeah.
And I was just...
like... I mean,
it just really upset me that the teacher did that.
I've told that to students before, but it was like, for example, I mean, it's like they're on Go Talent Roadie and they want to do Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Exactly.
I'm just like, this isn't happening.
No, that's
I'm like,
too hard.
this is way too hard.
But this is something she's been preparing for months.
Yeah. Right.
And then the teacher asks them to play in front of class.
Yeah.
In front of their peers,
right.
which is one of the most nerve-wracking things for high schoolers.
Yeah.
And that's when she's like, oh, I think this piece is too hard for you. Because under pressure, she screwed up.
Yeah.
And it was pretty rough. It was like a totally different person playing the piece for me because of how bad it was versus how well she played in her lesson.
And that's another thing again with this motivation that I always need to keep remembering is that when all of us have had this. We remember like a sentence the teacher said like back in freaking fifth grade, and now we're 50. You know,
exactly, and that's why I think that this teacher, because the student has had her since 6th grade, and she's now going into 12th grade.
Right.
All these years she's had the same teacher, and that teacher said that one thing, and I just felt like it completely discouraged her.
Yeah,
and it pissed me off beyond.
Yeah, and I haven't taken that into consideration lately when I first got into town, and like I said, I wanted to do these, 6 come to Jesus meetings within the next 8 lessons, and I realized that I'll always do the stuff of, I'll list out all the reasons why I know they can do this, but then I'll accidentally forget the sentence, you can do this. It's like, if to me, I'm motivated.
Too much negative without that one positive?
It's even positive. I'm giving them positive. Man, I mean, all this song has is this, and you've already done this before, and I'll give them all this stuff, but then I won't tell them the, I know you can do this line. It's like the last line of it. And so to me, I feel like I'm being motivating, but to them, it's just a lecture.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what all the good I'm trying to do there, what they've left this lesson with is that I just got this big lecture and this was lame and a drag to be in this lesson right now, even though I'm trying to be motivating. So it's like, turds.
Yeah. Kids.
I hate turds. But anyway, well, cool, man. Well, definitely, that's, definitely, but there you go. I don't know.
Right.
That's the show. It's been Erik Hassell, and teacher in town, and we'll be back next time with keep up the good work, obviously, and we'll be back next time talking about some other stuff with some other person, talking about stuff on KC Music Talk. So there you go. Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Have a great night, everybody. Take it easy. Excellent job. That was good stuff, dude. This has been... Holy crap.
Is it like 9 o'clock?
No, 8:30, but
oh, wow.
Half, yeah. Eric, this is my mom, Diana.
Hey.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We were talking about Suzuki a little bit,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Suzuki rocks.
He was talking about this lady in, what was it, Colombia, that made her students, or made the parents sign a thing, you will. Tell them what you did. Just 3 years old, and what the teacher
Yeah, well, no, I saw a show on Phil Donahue in late 70s, early 80s. He was born in 82, right around the time he was born. And I was like, wow, because I'm an educator. I have a undergraduate in elementary ed and a special ed master's.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, oh my God, I love this. And we grew up in a family band, so we had a big music background, and I sang and all that. So I knew I wanted to see if the kids were interested in music. I wanted them to do that. So anyway, I looked up what it was about, and I mean, at that time, it wasn't as prevalent or known about in just the common folk, and so I found a public school teacher that went and got her Suzuki training and started doing private lessons. So she got out of public school, so I contacted her, and so we started him at 3, and then his brother on cello at 4. Rob started on violin, and Dan started on cello, and so
there are 4
it was great.
Two, me and my brother.
Oh, I thought you were saying. I thought you were continuing with like other. Okay.
No,
just two. Okay.
That he started at 4 years old.
His brother, Rob's brother, started on cello at 4.
Yeah.
We started both of them, and so along the way, we would try to find maybe one teacher that could do both.
Okay.
And a
I
lot
know
of
Jean Dexter.
Sure, yeah. I
Yeah.
took from her 4th grade.
Yeah.
Oh, so
we
you
did
switched over to.
Dexter because she could do beginning violin, and he was still. It wasn't a beginner.
But you were saying that you brought those tapes home, right?
Yeah,
and
you listened to the
I
tapes.
brought the tapes home, and I did a lot of research on and I just loved it. So I did all the research on listening to the tapes and all the activities, and then of course, if you're a parent that likes music, then you playing some and attending and sitting at the lessons, I'm all about that.
Yeah.
So then I could really help with practicing at home because I was there taking notes, seeing what they were supposed to do, and all that.
See, but you had a lesson. You had a violin in the lesson, right? So you're
Yeah,
literally
but
playing
this
in the
teacher
lesson with
said-
them,
Oh
right?
wow,
Dude.
I think this lady just makes you like be a little hands-on
Sure.
during
yeah.
the lesson,
Yeah, the
as opposed to
real-
just observing.
The reading and the real stuff that I'd heard is the best is if the parent has a full-size violin and tries to, learn along with them. So I did that for a while, but it doesn't take
Wow.
long on Suzuki, where the student's every bit as good, if not more, than you. And
Uh-huh.
I loved the ear training part of it, because even though I'm not a very good instrumentalist, I mean, I did some bass guitar and piano, but I had such a good ear because everybody up in the upline of our entire family has a really good ear. And even though I was a better singer than an instrumentalist by far. But I always found, like, I was in 4-H and we were going to the state fair, and like I could chord and play some stuff and sing and help the girls because we were going to take a musical deal. You had to have a talent show or whatever. Every one of my friends are like, I don't have any music, I can't play anything. I mean, I can play something, I don't play it well, but I can sing something and I can play, like, I know C chord and, whatever. And so that made a big impression on me, that having the gift of someone teaching you to play by ear before you learn notes is such a gift, because once you learn just to play sight reading, it's really hard to trust that you have the power to do that. And so when I heard that, in addition to the whole how they do it, the whole methodology, I was like, as a teacher, this is so going to work, because the parent sits in the lesson with them, and you're in charge of the lesson at home. Yeah. And it just does.
I've had very few students whose parents have like taken notes.
Yeah.
But the ones who did, I had a 5-year-old. He was one of my very first students ever. So like I was a terrible teacher, because I just was like I was like I'll get Suzuki Book 1. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
And so I taught him how to play 16th notes so we could go pepperoni pizza.
Right.
But I was like 1E and a 2, and like because I was a mess. But the mom, because she was able to understand what I was telling her. Was able to teach him, and he ended up going through the whole Suzuki book.
And not only did I read about it and go find the activities, I was a teacher myself, so I already knew 3-year-old is 10 minutes a day max.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh
but
yeah.
7 days a week.
Yes.
Even if it's only, if your lesson that day is finger snaps in the car, finger pops in the car, you're doing something, or you're listening to the tape in the car and you're singing it. And just the whole thing.
Did you ever read Nurtured with Love or whatever, the Suzuki book?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I know that one he uses learning a language. He's like, music is basically a language. And did you ever read that book?
No.
Okay. Well, it starts. Well, I haven't finished it. I bought the book, but I haven't read it.
We're
I haven't read all of
music.
it. Well, it starts out with how Suzuki realized that how to teach a language. So like he would walk by this bird every day and he would say hello or something like that, and the bird, after so many attempts, said it back or something along those lines. And he was like, oh, and then he related to kids learning Japanese and all this stuff. But he was like, oh, but if these kids are like surrounded by this music like every day, a little bit every day, they'll learn it like you learn a language, because like kids absorb things so well.
And the listening skills of listening to that 100 times when you got to it, you knew it. And you're listening to the next song when you're on the first song. So listening to Go Tell Aunt Rhody when you're on Twinkle. And just the being the teacher, you know, it all just made sense to me. And I knew kind of what you should do for a kid that age and a 3-year-old.
I think for me that was also something I didn't know. Right. But then when I started this new 5-year-old student, I just added 15 minutes to their lesson. That's all I did. And I was like, we'll work a little bit.
Basically, I mean, I call it like you have assistant teacher at home. I mean, you can't beat that. You know, you can't. And what I was trying to get at in the interview was that what I would love to do is just go, no, you're doing this, right? You're going to go buy an instrument. You're going to go practice with them. You're going to be sitting here in lesson, not on your phone, you know, as the parent. And I'm just sitting here going like, I can't do that. You know, right now I think it's a muscle problem. I don't have enough, you know, enough status in Kansas City to be like, no, if you don't do this, I'm chopping you. And I already got $200,000 in the bank. I already have 30 students. I already have, you know, if you don't want to do this, then I'm not gonna feel bad one iota. But I don't have enough, you know, kind of muscle to do that, to demand this of the students. And so that idea is throughout my entire lesson. I mean, we talked for an hour and a half about all those little decisions of, should I force them to do this, because I know they should and I know they're going to benefit from it, but if I do this, then I'm risking them quitting at every single moment of the lesson, and, you know, like so.
I personally think there's more stories about adults that said, I took piano lessons, I quit, I wish they're always talking about their mom or dad, would have made me stay. Well, the child usually makes it so horrifically awful for the parents that they finally give in after 3 years. But how would you think it could ever be successful when most of those parents weren't a musician? They just want their kids maybe to be more rounded. And I'm going to have my boy actually do piano lessons in addition to his sports. But you drop them off at the music teacher's house, you pick them up, and you say, go to the den and practice. You don't even know what practice means. As a teacher, well, first of all, I was a musician, but as a teacher, I knew that if we sang Twinkle, Twinkle, and I'm showing him, that's a higher note. I know that the visuals to get for a 3-year-old, you just make it a game. You just make it a game. And you sing it with them, and you model, and you make it really fun. Okay, we're going to play this game. What 3-year-old's not going to want to play a game?
Exactly.
And what child doesn't want undivided attention from their parent? Are you kidding? Are you kidding? So that's... You know, in my mind as a teacher, piano lessons would only work for about 10% of the kids who ever do piano lessons, because the parent doesn't go in there. And, you know, granted, when they get older and they're supposed to practice for an hour, you don't have an hour. We're all working and whatever. But for a 3-year-old, you should be playing with them anyway. So if you wanted them to do piano, which they don't necessarily suggest at 3, but usually like more like 6 or 7, just because of everything.
Physical.
Span and all that. But Suzuki has 100% chance of being successful because of high parent involvement. The parent knows exactly what they're supposed to do because they sat in the lesson. And they know. Now, maybe they won't do it, why they're paying for lessons, and then not ever promoting that. I don't know what their agenda is.
But irrelevant of the ear training, even if you just keep all the parent stuff, dude, you can't beat that. I mean, that's would be the ultimate,
and
right?
So
I mean, the parents at home,
the parent. Classical world, because I grew up in a country band, and I was really into pop because I was, you know, the Carpenters and all the '70s stuff. But you know, I knew exactly when I got there and realized what they mean by that, you know, first chairs and the, you know, what the whole orchestra thing was about after doing Suzuki for 12 years and all that. I knew exactly why the ones in that circle were in that circle, and why a lot of them were Asian, and why about 90% all did Suzuki. That's exactly why they were in there. And they had high drive, and they had some innate ability, and they had some genetics, of course, all that.
And parental support, you know, like
parental support and people that could afford lessons and kept up with that. And now my kids never begged to not be in, you know. Plus, it's a pretty big self-esteem booster when you walk into 4th grade and you're playing Gavotte from Mignon, and they're wondering what they're gonna do with you. Yeah, they're wondering, what is he gonna do? We're renting instruments and learning the names of the strings. You know, in the first, you know.
Was that with Libby?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was a pretty big self-esteem booster. That not only are you the best in the 4th and 5th grade orchestra, or 6th. You know, you're getting to do a lot of cool things, and you're being asked to be in the primo stuff or in youth symphony.
Tell them what Libby told you.
Oh my God! So we start in 4th, and of course, I can only hunt and peck on the piano without just playing some stuff by ear and just chording. But so I would a lot of times sing whatever and he played treble and I was soprano, so I could easily read treble clef. I'm not very good at bass clef because I'm just not.
You don't have to read it.
And I'm not fast, at it. But so anyway, we go and she's like, we need to work on sight reading.
Oh.
And because his ear was so good.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, the song. I started on a note. I'll get it. Oh, I started on the wrong note.
Yeah. Especially the simple things that 4th graders were playing compared to what he was playing out of Suzuki books. And so she's like, okay, we got to work on this. This is how we're going to work on it. You're going to get an etude book, which I didn't know what that was. But went and got an etude book. She goes, they have no melodies. He has to read it. Don't you dare sing any of it to him, because if you sing one little line of it,
you'll hear it and just play it.
1 second.
Play it on the piano, play the easy notes and whatever, then he's got it. So don't do that. And it wasn't very long, but I'll never forget getting, both boys going to contests, somebody doesn't show up. And at that point, they're like, come over here, Mary Lou Jones, and she's like,
MJ.
Listen to this.
Oh, she was at South, wasn't she?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
She's like, listen to this.
I
was there. I heard it. Listen to this. Don't say a word, because we have like 5 minutes. Listen to this. And they go, and he joins the quartet, and they get a 1. And I believe that was on viola, and you had just started on viola like 3 months earlier. I'm like, you're going to contest in a quartet on your viola? You just started that.
It was a Mozart divertimento, his senior year.
Oh, fun.
The viola player didn't show up. It was down in Emporia, and so she just said the rest of it I could pretty much read. There's 2 or 3 lines that were just straight 8 notes, and she's like, no, just sit here, listen to this. So she just plays it like 10 times in a row, and I'm just like, and that's where your ear training,
as a 4th grader,
starts destroying people.
Libby was absolutely right. He needed to work on the etude book and just get really fast at reading and not knowing what it was supposed to sound like. But later, doing all the improv he does now all around town at jams and this and that, then it's quite the asset. To just be able to have heard, I've heard that song, I've heard that jazz tune or jazz standard, and
Do you know the Deekers? Colleen and Carmen?
I know Colleen,
Okay. Colleen has an older sister named Carmen.
Oh, okay.
And they're both sick.
Yeah.
I mean, Colleen's way better, but Carmen's amazing as well. If they know a pop tune, and they both have perfect pitch as well. I don't know if you rely on that at all, but if they know a pop tune, they can hear it in their head and play it.
I know.
They just play
Bob too. I know.
I'm just
and
like,
then he's
what?
like, it's Christmas or whatever, or he's like 10 or something. We're doing Silent Night. Oh, you want it? And he doesn't even say you want it in a different key, but that's too high. Okay, let's just move it. And what was amazing too is by then, like in high school, you had pretty well, you started to be able to play violin, viola pretty equally. Well, not in high school, but for sure in college. But moving back and forth, and I didn't know what this really meant in my head as much as I do now. But Mary Lou said, they're both chin fiddles. It's not a big deal. But it is a big deal. Alto clef, treble clef, moving your
When
mind
I first started teaching
between
viola.
those two. And like in silver strings or in strolling strings, you might be on your violin, but then in a classical piece, you're back. So getting your brain to do back and forth.
It took me a little while to
It's a
adjust.
little bit of a, yeah.
And then now I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, she was like talking about right when he switched as a freshman. She goes, yeah, it's a little bit of a, you gotta push your brain to, especially if you're going back and forth between those, different things.
You know what's hard for me to read now? Bass clef, playing a stringed instrument. If I'm playing the piano, I'm fine. But like if I'm trying to like play a cello line on the viola, nope. Because I keep reading it in alto clef.
Yeah, I know.
Like that's the thing that's tricky for me now.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, Suzuki, I can't even talk.
I really want to get my Suzuki training.
I know,
like really badly.
I do too.
I at least want to
that.
do because in Ottawa, I've heard great things about some of the people that go in there in the summer.
They're the big one
That's
in
the one we always heard about, even from Iowa. And
they're the big
all
one
over
in the
people
Midwest.
Yeah, Ottawa's the huge one in the.
Is it about 6 weeks in the summer?
Not anymore. I think Alice Joy Lewis is really sick. Or at least not able to keep up with it because I mean she's so old now. Yeah. But I know her son Brian comes up a lot in the summers. Like he would run
do it a lot
something
in the summer because the teachers who taught school would come and do that in the summer. I think it'd be an asset for even people weren't looking for Suzuki, but then to be on that national directory. That's how.
I don't even care about the directory. I care about the teaching techniques.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because that's the part where I wish I had more variety. Yeah. And one of the things they teach, they're like, you need to identify if they're a visual learner, an oral learner, or like, I forget what the third one was that they described. And they say just by how the student looks at things, you can tell those things. So one of my friends, do you know Joanna Davis? She used to be at Pleasant Ridge.
Right.
She's a good friend of mine, and she has like through book 1 or book 2 training or something. She gave me all of her notes, and one of the first things it says, they're like, oh, if they're looking up at you, they're oral, I think, and if they're looking down, they're visual. I forget, like if you're like talking to them, you can tell just by where they're looking.
That's interesting.
Well,
I forget what the different things are.
You probably remember some that, I don't know how long did we do Suzuki before you moved to more of a traditional teacher, maybe through elementary?
That was 4th because we were done with Decker or whatever her name was at 4th, and then 9th I started doing lessons again, but I had done orchestra, I was in orchestra all the way through.
So one of the things Rob said is because he started so young, he doesn't really, I can tell him more about what the 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds do in Suzuki, but 3-year-olds not going to remember how the whole thing worked, but
Well, I don't even remember learning when I was in 4th grade.
I know,
And I didn't take lessons till high school. So
I would say that the big thing for me, I know I'm scared of sight reading, but a lot of people are scared of ear. Well, the baseline skill is call and answer. That's all it is that you listen to something and then you play it. That's the fundamental thing of all of Suzuki is just listen, play. And so like what I would say is like definitely I'm not a Suzuki teacher. I definitely use all the books, but I'm just doing a lot of call and answer with them at the beginning as our warm up instead of the shifting exercises or instead of the scales. I'm doing call and answer with them to get that ear training as a supplement, to obviously I'm not doing certified Suzuki training, but that's how I kind of do the best of both worlds, is do a whole bunch of sight reading on their pieces, but then do a massive amount of almost every single time doing call and answer with them, and so they're still getting that ear training,
by 6 or 7 in Suzuki, you're not playing as many games, but if you're talking about the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, you've got to play some games, because that's how they learn. If you go to a preschool class and a kindergarten class, you are doing all kinds of clapping and, gimmicks and things to get them to kind of get what you're trying to even put down because their language isn't developed yet and all that. That's what I could understand very well being a special ed teacher and an elementary teacher about the little kids. I've always taught little kids, but they've got it figured out, I am telling you, on every level, on how to motivate kids from the renting the instrument, not getting it out right away. And then I really liked the Asian or, you know, that perspective of respect and bowing. You always see the younger Suzuki kids bow and be respectful. They don't walk out like they don't know what they're doing. They walk out with their instrument and they bow and they're like, I'm ready to play right now.
Yeah.
And I love the part where it was the group lesson and not just the individual lesson. I really like that too. I think the group lesson was maybe once a month or something. I don't think it was every week.
Yeah.
But you are constantly talking about listening again. You are listening to the older, better players all the time.
See, and you said something interesting with the not giving them the instrument too. You know, right? The kids sitting there and they're just absolutely tortured, right? I mean, you have the instrument on the panel and they're sitting with only their little Cracker Jack box, and you're like, you know, they're like, I want the instrument, and then no, and you're gonna put this Cracker Jack box in the case, right, and you're gonna pretend this is and you will treat this Cracker Jack box with respect until I hand you this actual instrument, and it's brilliant, and that's again another one of those examples of a time where I want to get on with it, but there's a method to this madness of just basically forcing the, you want the immediate gratification, right? The kid wants that instrument, but you're basically saying, no, you know, you're the adult here, and I don't care how bad you want this. You know, there's a process.
She had out of the case. You put the Cracker Jack in your case.
Right.
They all set up on the countertop. And every week, I'm telling you, they wanted those.
And so the teacher traded you the Cracker Jack box for
with a ruler, right? Cracker Jack. You
I have no idea.
You glue
I don't know
the
about
ruler.
this.
It was like a craft activity. It didn't take long at all, but we made them.
So you glue the ruler to the Cracker Jack box, and then you use that as your instrument. And it's just doing
Because I've always wondered what I could use for these younger kids to play games.
And you can do anything, any little thing, but the idea is that you put that up here, and then you're down to rest, and then you're doing this, right? You're doing your steps, and then the thing, and like. But what I was trying to get at on the show is that I want to know from people if I can just buck up and charge $50 a lesson, and they'll come. You know, you build it, they'll come. You know, or
I upped my rate to $30 a half hour.
Right, and or the same thing with this moment where do you just say, no, this is what the lessons are. You're not getting the instrument yet. We're going to keep doing our finger taps and the bow exercises, but you're not getting this instrument yet. And you just make the parent buy in. You make the parent buy in that we're going to go on this process. And the idea is it the idea that the ones that go with me are going to be gangbusters when they get done, and if they don't, they just, this isn't for you, or do you try to meet them halfway is kind of what I've tried to do, is Suzuki, they don't go the halfway. You're going to do this. You've signed a contract. The parent will go home. You will be in the lesson. You're going to do the Cracker Jack box. You're going to...
has such a reputation that you're also attracting a different kind of parent. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that they're pretty serious parents about music, exposing their kids to music.
If they're going straight to a Suzuki studio.
Yes.
And if you're going straight there with your 3-year-old,
you're
pretty serious about wanting music and not. But also, there's really we're talking about early childhood education pretty much, whether it's in preschool or whatever. So if you're trying to teach 3 to, or even let's say 4 to 7-year-olds. It's a different thing than if you have a high school degree. I mean, you just have to know you have bow parades. It seems stupid. It's not stupid to a 3-year-old.
Bow parades.
Bow parades?
Yeah. What do you say? Yeah.
The kindergarten pencil was that the Cracker Jacks with the ruler, that's the facsimile of a violin.
Right.
And a kindergarten pencil because it's a little bit bigger for their fingers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So
you're doing
and we're parading around. Everybody's doing their bow parade. and that seems really hokey.
But to a 3-year-old, that's great.
That's not hokey at all. That's really fun. Sitting there by the hour and just getting your bow position, they don't, that's boring. You're gonna get a boy to do that.
See,
for
these
them.
are the things I want to learn about.
I know.
The bow parade.
The
Like,
bow
I bet you my 5-year-old would love that.
I know. Yeah.
I'd be like,
then
and
we
I'd
got
get her
a-
sister in on it too.
Insert of a pizza thing.
Which is
in-
your thing, your box thing you were talking
and
about.
You
Oh, yeah.
trace around their feet in rest position and then play position, but all those are traced on there.
Yes.
So they know exactly what to do. Like everybody
Yep.
tell me rest position.
So there-
your
that's what we did. We
violins
put
here,
her feet on there,
Was it- right.
and
Mhm.
her little,
Yeah,
her
but
older
then
sister.
They actually got to do
traced
that
it.
with a marker.
Right,
Mhm.
and that's what you said.
You
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to just be, you know.
Yeah,
in
and
the
that part
mindset of a
I
press.
knew about,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
something to do. I didn't know about this,
And maybe
but the
this-
Cracker Jack box.
Cracker Jack. box, yeah.
Cracker Jack
Jack
box.
box.
Wow, that's really hard for me to say.
Yeah.
But that's also you have to be able to do everything correctly on this
Yes.
before you get to play on the real thing. I wish I knew about
And
that.
they got to open the Cracker Jacks box. There's a little toy in the Cracker Jacks box. I mean, maybe this particular teacher thought of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was her deal.
Oh, was
not
it like an
ours.
actual box of Cracker Jacks, or was it
Yeah.
empty?
And no.
It wasn't
it
empty?
was-
Oh,
no. And so
okay.
then you got to open
'Cause they always
it,
have the
eat
prize
Cracker
in it or
Jacks,
whatever.
and
That's
get
like the Cracker
prize
Jack
out
thing.
when you earned your.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I know
okay.
that was a few weeks. I don't remember how many weeks, but it could be pretty unique for each child. Who, you know, ones that might be ready in 2 weeks.
And the other thing is that I think I'm realizing now in the last year, now that I've actually had a couple of really little kids, I hadn't had too many of the 6-year-old kind of students yet. It's always been like about 5th and up. But I
Right.
definitely have tried to remember that when you have them the first day and they're that 6-year-old, and then let's say 4 or 6 weeks from now you're actually going to give them the actual instrument, well, there's a lot of crap you could do during that first 6 weeks.
Yes.
You can do your bow parade, you can do the bow exercises, you can do the finger taps, right? You can do the tap on the pinky, you can do the box thing, you can learn how to stand, do the breast position,
Right.
play, you know, there's all
Well,
this
and
stuff.
you assume that when
The
you say-
flashcards, you know, with
when you say
rhythm
move
symbols
closer
or
to the
whatever, you know.
scroll, well, you have to teach the names of all the parts
Right,
of the
yeah,
instrument. Like, they
right.
don't know what scroll is. You have to teach that. The older kids just get it. Oh,
Right.
she said that word and that
She was pointing to this, and
Yeah, she
Yeah.
pointed to this.
so that must be
was-
that.
Must be that, but they don't incidentally learn that at
Right.
three. You
Oh,
have
no.
to actually teach that. And so
I didn't
you
even
have-
talk about parts of the instrument with my 5-year-old. We, instead of saying the letter names, because she was barely reading all the letters,
Yeah.
Right.
we named each one with someone she knew. I was Eric, her sister was Ainsley, her daddy and Gigi,
Right.
or whatever. And so that was perfect, and she remembered it the first
Oh, yeah.
lesson
That's
Yeah.
funny.
that we talked about it.
Yeah.
And
And
so there's lots of those things that seem like they're stupid, but if you're saying closer to the, you know, bridge or to whatever, and they don't even know what that is, they're not
Right.
gonna move closer
Right.
to that.
they're not
Yeah.
going to know what that means.
Yeah.
They're just going to keep doing whatever they're doing, and
Yeah.
like, oh.
Yeah.
And like I told Rob, all these prepositions you'll say to the top of the bow, but they don't know top and bottom. So you didn't
Yeah.
realize they don't even know that
Yeah.
concept. So teaching the little kids is really different because there's so many things, but there's a lot of things that we might call as games that you're teaching a skill, you're just doing it in a fun way that
Right.
is gonna motivate
Right.
them.
So you talk about those prepositions all the time, like a high note, low note. What the hell is that, right?
Yeah.
Well, they don't know
Yeah.
high and low, right? And when we go low to high to, well, we're doing this right now. This has nothing to do with high
Right.
or low. They're thinking
Right.
that, you know,
Right.
Yep.
and so, but we're talking about
Oh, yeah,
the note.
the
So now,
5-year-old.
now this is like a totally abstract concept to them, and
In
that
a
we
year and a
understand.
half. All I've got.
Yeah.
Well, because at first we didn't even do any songs. It was just like bow,
Yeah.
like rhythm things. I was like, okay, we're gonna play pepperoni
Right.
pizza, and I tried to be really exaggerated, and I would
Right.
like move her
Yes.
hand for her,
Yes.
and but after we finally got to where we drew, like I wrote out Twinkle Twinkle on a big thing, so I just put like A, and then I'd put a number.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, and it was orange or red, whatever it was all A string, and then blue was all E string, and I was like, okay, which string is red or
Right.
whatever color it was,
So you
and
drew-
she was like Ainsley,
Right.
and then I was like, okay, and what's my favorite color? She goes, blue. So blue is Eric, and so like she totally got it, and I used numbers from there,
Yeah.
and she learned Twinkle Twinkle. Every time she
Mhm.
saw a
Yeah.
letter, she would play pepperoni pizza,
So you just did kind
and
of
so
a,
she's only learned 2 songs.
you just did
That and Mary Had a Little Lamb.
You did kind of a like almost like a bastard version of Tab, right there. You kind of
What's
made
tab?
it like how guitar players read
tab.
tab, right? You're doing
Yes.
a different version of tab before you get to the actual notation.
Yes,
right?
because she loves to color, and so I let her pick out all the colors. I was like, okay, we need 2 colors, one for Ainsley and one for Eric. She goes, okay, and so she would go pick out 2 colors, and then that was the only thing I could think of. She knew her numbers, and so I told her, you have 1, 2, and 3, just like really spoon feeding everything.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty successful. But the thing with teaching the young kids that I didn't know about was all the psychological things. So like, why is she cranky today? She probably has low blood sugar. I didn't know that was a thing until I talked to one of my teacher friends. She teaches middle school.
It's almost dinner time. She hasn't had dinner.
Yes, or she started school, like all day school or whatever, and suddenly she's not eating at the normal time, so her blood sugar's low. I didn't realize that kids get really cranky until this teacher said something. She was like, oh, she probably hadn't eaten anything. I was like, that affects kids? She's like, yeah. And she's a mother of 3, so she totally gets it.
See, that's what I didn't.
And those are things I didn't know.
That's what I didn't think of too. Is that when you're wanting to go at them at that moment, you don't know what's going on. You think you know, but you don't know. I mean, they might get. I mean, they might be getting the crap kicked out of them by their dad or something. I mean, you never know what's going on.
Right.
Or a kid at school is bullying them, or they're hungry, or they just,
or they're just tired.
They're doing their
like,
teacher.
This one burst out into tears because she was tired.
Yeah, or their teacher cussed
She's like,
them out
I'm trying, like through the tears. I was like, I think I broke her.
Right, yeah.
Because I was just trying to get her to play literally one note and say 1, 2, 3, 4. I was like, go 1, 2, 3, 4, and she's like, okay.
Yeah.
I was just like, and the mom was just like, she's exhausted. I was like, oh, okay. Like I just had no idea.
With you,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
It had nothing to do with you.
And I was just glad that the girl wasn't mad at me or anything.
Yeah.
And I was being as patient as I could. Like I wasn't being mean. I was just like, okay, something's going on.
Right.
And it turned out that they had a late night, and then she had to wake up for school.
Right.
Yeah.
And a big thing
And she's only
with
5-year-old.
kids is you've got to have visuals with your auditory. If you're only ever looking and you're not showing, they're not going to get it.
That's why, since I don't know how to teach by ear, I wrote out Twinkle.
Yeah.
But then she started getting it.
Right.
Yeah. So, and like you said, on the violin, you're going to have to say higher, lower. You're going to have to show.
I haven't even tried doing anything with that.
Yeah.
It's all on the tapes.
Yeah.
Because I just have high 2 for the tape.
Right.
But
So
anything
we're playing.
you're wanting them to learn, you've got to
Show them visually. Don't just sit here.
Don't just talk. You have to show them, and it'll make it like, oh, why didn't you say so? I didn't know what you meant.
Right.
That's one thing I was really bad at. Is I'm just sitting here, wah, and they,
If anything,
kids.
If you had to do either one, I'd show and not talk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I just say do this and then do whatever I want you
Yeah.
to do.
My piano trio recently played for a group called Harmony Project. Have you heard of Harmony Project? Basically, inner city string program. So these kids in the Kansas City urban core, I think is the PC term they like now. These kids don't have string programs, and they also don't have the money for all this. And this program provides everything for them.
Cool.
And they pay really well. Like it's like $50 an hour. And so I sub with this group, and I'm probably going to start teaching with them. And we played for the younger kids, and one of them asked, "Why does she have a second clarinet?" And Larkin starts talking, and I was like, "Oh God, she's gonna lose them in 3 seconds." And even the kid who asked the question, he started looking around within a minute. And I was like, "Hey guys, I think we need to move on. Like these kids, they're only 7 years old or something, really young."
And what's the program called?
Harmony Project, Kansas City.
That sounds awesome.
It is.
I love that. I taught for KCK for 10 years.
Oh yeah. Oh, and KCK has awesome string. I'm doing musical bridges now. Where I go into, like, I have a couple kids at Sumner, and then Argentine Middle and Harmon High and Washington High. I go in during orchestra, take them out for a lesson, and it's cool. Super discounted for them. Like, I only get $27 an hour or something, which, I mean, and for me, it's not that. I'm in KCK.
Right.
Where these kids really want to do it, but they have to audition for it, and they have to have a certain GPA, and it's just so rewarding. But it's KCK really has things going great. But this is actually through UMKC. UMKC's Academy does musical bridges.
Oh, that's cool.
So
that's cool, man.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice chatting.
Cool. I don't know, man. That was some really good stuff. I let it roll. I don't know.
Oh, you did?
I mean, it's still rolling. I might.
I thought you turned it off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought all that was like good talking. I might just leave it like on the show for real.
Okay.
I don't know. That was really good stuff right there. I mean, that was like.
Well, your mom went through all of the stuff that we're trying to do.
Yeah.
As the parent.
Yeah. So right, but
it's like, will you teach me all these games, Diana?
I'm gonna get her back on the show. She has one. She did the first episode.
Oh, your mom did?
Yeah. So I'm gonna have her back on and have her. We talk more generally about her family band. I want her to come back on the show again and talk about all that crap.
Yeah.
She just talked about. She's got good stuff.
I mean, that's all the stuff that. Since we just like go into it because it's kind of what we have to do to survive, like we don't learn about all of it.
Yeah.
Like the child psychology stuff, like that's stuff that like I kind of some kids I just stare at them and I'm like, why won't you do this? Because they're tired or like whatever, or they're cranky, like whatever the case, you know.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, it's been real.
All right, dude. Thanks a lot, man. That was
you're
fun.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
Good talk. Well, yeah.